Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
So, welcome to the show. Today's Thursday. This is episode 187, and today we have the lovely Lori Keesley, an author and a blogger. And we're going to be talking about reinventing yourself after a tragedy. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and therapists get their message out there to the people who need to hear it. If you want to get weekly updates and download the Alexa skill for Mintwave Radio, you can just go to KarenRobertsCoaching.com/guest. And if you want to be a guest, the clue is in the name. You can also apply to be a guest too. Now, Lori, an author and a blogger, she discovered her passion for writing at age 6. That's very young. When she wrote and illustrated a very short story about 3 puppies lost in a hat box. Oh, her first grade teacher loved it and encouraged her to continue writing. Just goes to show what happens when you get a bit of support. Many years later, the study of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird rekindled her interest. So captivated by Harper's young protagonist, Scout, Lori wanted to create characters just as engaging as this spunky little girl. Years passed, and hundreds, if not thousands of novels were read before Lori realized that her goal, and she has her debut novel coming out, The Difference He Made, is scheduled to release it late this year. Now, Lori also writes a weekly blog, The Accidental Blogger, that spotlights men and women who overcome adversity, and has authored 2 short stories, Robert's Prayer and The Note. Both stories and a host of other gifts are free to those who've subscribed to our monthly letter. To subscribe, you just got to go to lorikeesley.com. So, welcome to the show, Lori.
Thank you, Karen. And as with so many novels, my novel's name changed. It's only maybe, I don't know, the 6th name change. It's almost ridiculous. And it got so bad, I decided, you know what? I'm not even going to mention the name anymore, because it seemed every other month I was changing the name. So, just to correct, the novel's name is Always Think of Me. And the release date has been changed to February. So that gives everyone a little more time, not to rush with all the things that are associated with getting a debut novel out there.
You are the first person I think I've spoken to that has authored a novel. Many have authored business books and, how-to books, but creative writing, that's a whole other thing, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. I spent my early years as a newspaper reporter and took some creative writing courses, and I gave up on creative writing, even though I had this passion since high school that I wanted to be a novelist, as you mentioned. I really, to this day, my favorite book still is To Kill a Mockingbird. I just cannot believe how beautifully rendered those characters are and the messages. And unfortunately, some people say, and because of some of the themes, that this book should not be read. I say, no, this book is an object lesson in tolerance and that type of thing. And the lessons children learn by their parents. It's highly essential, at least to my way of thinking. And now my head's spinning and I can't remember the point of what I was going to tell you. Yes, it is different. It is so different. And it took me a long time to realize how I was to tell this story in Always Think of Me. What I realized is that I actually wrote a love story. It might be an uncommon love story, but it's still a love story. And this is a story about a 33-year-old party boy who can't figure out his purpose in life. After an accident, he finds himself on an otherworldly mission to see this woman he fell in love with and to stop her from doing the unthinkable. It's truly an uncommon love story about life's purpose and do-overs.
And you mentioned right at the beginning about overcoming adversity.
Right.
This was the topic of today, reinventing yourself after a tragedy. Now, is this part of your story, or are you just talking about overcoming adversity in general?
The tragedy that my entire family experienced was the unexpected, sudden death of our oldest son. And because of the mourning process, everyone experiences this differently. I started really thinking about, okay, what was the purpose of my son's life? He was only 33 years old in the prime of his life. I was in the getting ready to retire myself. I was still working and that sort of thing. And I decided that I needed to write about this theme, and that is everyone has a purpose. And at the same time, this was maybe 4.5 years ago. And I know in Great Britain, as well as other parts of the world, especially here in the United States, there was this huge uptick in suicides. And this was before COVID. And I started thinking, my goodness, if people woke up every single morning and realized that they had a job to do, it was a job that only they were supposed to do, that maybe they wouldn't be sad and wanting to end their lives. And I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but it's this feeling of hopelessness. And that's why I wrote this novel addressing that theme. And then that's why I started the blog, The Accidental Blogger. I never had any intention of starting a blog. That was never on my bucket list. And so I started writing about everyday people who face adversity. And I tell their story to offer hope to others. Because in these stories, I hope that people can recognize themselves and perhaps follow the advice that these people I interview share with me through the blog. I have talked with all kinds of people. In fact, I just added it up. I've 64 blogs since I started. Not quite as many episodes as you've had with your podcast, but I started 3 years ago in August. So we're coming up on that anniversary as we speak now. So that's why I started what I did. And again, I had no intention of doing some of the things I've done. But I also think that when you're grappling with sadness and despair and that type of thing, you really have to look for the silver lining. Things are redeemed. And perhaps this horrible thing that happened will set you on the path that you're supposed to be on in the first place. And sadly, Karen, something horrible happened over the weekend. My sister and her husband live outside of the DC area, and I live in Tennessee. And a bunch of my friends had flown in for a long weekend of lots of fun here in the Smoky Mountains. My sister and brother-in-law got here on Thursday. Saturday afternoon, he had died. I'm shaken to the core at this very moment. Yeah. Who knew?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So she is now going through.
Now she's going through what I had to go through. And of course, she loved my son. They were thick as thieves. They were a lot alike in their outlook on life and the way they approached life. So she really took his death very hard. And I'm taking her husband's death very hard. I've known him forever, and he was just the most beautiful man. His smile, the way he would tease people, and he made everyone feel like they were special and that life would not be the same without them. And it's a humongous loss to our family.
And this is it. It's interesting that something that we are all, everybody goes through it at some point, be more so than others when we get to a certain age. However, we are never equipped to deal with this. It's because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about it. That's negative. We don't want to talk about it. However, then when it happens, and obviously far more terrible when it's the younger they are, obviously, it is something. We had a conversation not so long ago with somebody who helps people through this. And we're saying we're taught, or we're not even taught actually, but we talk about a lot of dealing when you have a baby and this kind of thing. Nobody teaches you as we get older if we're either dealing with elderly parents, or even more tragically, if we're losing the ones around us or even younger, we're just not equipped. to deal with the emotional
Yeah, and
trauma that comes from that.
that is very true. And what we Westerners know how to acquire things. We don't know how to let things go. And it
Ugh,
is a loss of a relationship. And the idea of going through life without that relationship. And then if you have these situations, you've probably heard about them, where people are angry with their family members and they never forgive one another. And then these things happen. Now they're walking around with a sense of guilt.
guilt.
And that's another thing that they have to work through. It's not only the loss, but the guilt. Oh, the what ifs. Why didn't I do that? The regrets. It goes on and on. And it's almost like I've decided to think about, I'm not going to stay mad at people. I'm just not. I'm just
Life's
going to
too short.
yeah, it's too short because you don't know. Just like what happened with my son, what happened to my brother in law, Charlie. No, he had no idea that he had this fast moving metastatic cancer. It hadn't shown up on any test, not one. This is
Wow.
shocking. He did not pass away because of the cancer. He passed away because he had his body was fighting, the immune system was fighting the cancer, and it had nothing to fight this infection. And his
Wow.
body shut down. It was horrible. For my sister and her 3 daughters who had to come down here where they live, this is not a hop, skip, and a jump. It's an 8-hour drive. And it's just the whole thing. So I'm reeling from that, but it just underscores some of the things that I think are important. And that is you must forgive. You cannot walk around with these ill feelings. And also you must move on, you have to move past. You have to go through this grief journey. You have to get over to the other side because I've also known people who didn't get to the other side. And what did they do? They became embittered. They became embittered, and then perhaps they weren't able to accomplish their mission in life because they were too busy being angry. And think about
Wow.
the things that we have these jobs to do because we're here ultimately to serve others. It's not about us, it's about serving others. And if you don't fulfill your mission, perhaps you're preventing someone else from accomplishing his or her mission. And we're all woven. Like, for instance, Karen meeting you. I see this as something that had to happen, that we were supposed to meet. And it also adds a little spice to life too when you encounter people that you never expected. My goodness, you're across the ocean from me. But here we are chatting. And this is a good thing. And it adds spice to life.
Yeah. And it is about the sharing the stories. And you're so right. And it is strange that from a tragedy, it can actually, from hearing people's stories, because people do get stuck. And I understand because we're not taught to deal with it. And the way we have been conditioned, if people are unaware on what's going on and why they're feeling it, I think it's a natural human instinct to go through those different feeling places of, yes, denial. And then, yes, you can go through a bit anger and regret. And that is natural if it
That's
was
right.
to pass,
Mm.
if you were to allow it to pass. But I can I can understand why some people get stuck because no one's explained to them that's what's going on and there
Mhm.
is a way out because it
Mhm.
isn't spoken about. So by you being open and sharing your story, because people they just catch on to it, don't they? They hold on
Mhm.
to it. Like you say, they stay in that bitter
That
state, which
eh,
is not healthy for them
no,
or anybody around them.
that's right. And
But if
some
they don't hear your story, then
Yeah,
no.
and also some people will offer advice and say, "Oh, move on, belly up. You can do this." But they don't really understand. No one really, like you said earlier, no one wants to talk about this. But people do grieve differently. There's gobs of stuff on the internet about grieving, but people really feel uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. And sometimes they don't say the right thing. And they
Mm,
expect, I wouldn't have done that. Look, I did that myself. I have done that before this happened to me. Oh boy. That was a silly thing to do. Why won't they just let this go? Why do they keep posting stuff on social media? Why don't they? I viewed it as, oh my goodness, they're not moving on. But that was their way. And I was empathetic. And I'm ashamed. I'll admit it. I did it. And I now understand. Sometimes you really do have to walk around in someone else's shoes. And this is,
There
and
it
I
is.
do believe that the one positive change from all this is that I think I have become more empathetic with my family. I love my family. We have a fun family. And we used to call it the Keesey School of Nurturing. It was, oh, cut me a break, stop whining, that kind of thing. And we laugh about it. But empathy is good. You can't just run over people when they're in a terrible place. And that's how we were raised. So
Yeah.
anyway, I did change from that.
Everybody, I think, like you say, here in the West, we have been, I'm sure we've got, even though you're over there, I'm sure it's very similar sort of upbringings. And we do judge. Now I'm aware, I work on it. I try not to judge because, again, we see the world through our eyes. And like you say, it's easy to go, well, why are they doing that? But they're not you and they haven't had your experiences or the circumstances. So they're going to deal with things differently. And we're all so unique. We're all so different that, grieving is, I see it as a process. And it's the flow of energy. It needs to go. And it's okay to feel bad. That's perfectly normal. So don't feel guilty. Because like you say, we have all these conflicting emotions, like the feelings of guilt or even the feeling guilty about feeling bad about it. It's all feelings that need to pass.
Right. Because we don't talk, like you said, we just simply don't talk about it. I also believe that in the process, you can gain so much. I believe I became a little more empathetic. And I also believe that my immediate family changed with my children, my husband. We changed. The kids who, we had 3 sons. And so the 2 other boys, we weren't verbally demonstrative. We wouldn't say, "Oh, I love you, Mom," or "I love you, Drew or Nate. I love you, Kevin." We didn't do that. And then after the oldest son, Ty, died, now I do not end a conversation without telling them that I love them. Because I didn't do that with the son who passed. And now that's a little regret I have. But I need to forgive
You let
myself.
that, there you go.
Forgive myself.
And it is about the forgiving yourself. So many people talk about the importance of forgiving others, but actually it starts with you.
Oh, yes,
with you.
indeed. That's right, Karen, because we all make mistakes. I know a lot of other people who've lost their children as well from drug overdoses. The fentanyl crisis here in this country is horrific. I don't know what the situation there in England and the UK, but it's horrible here.
Not yet. I've seen a Netflix documentary about it. It's crazy, the things that have gone. Yes, it's
was it Dope Sick?
Yes.
That is incredible. That whole story and how that pharmaceutical company had marketed the drug to specific areas in the United States, blue collar people who have physical problems because of their jobs, and went into that market with a vengeance with their faulty testing, for marketing. Wow. And what it unleashed. And now we have this fentanyl thing. And you know what? And this stuff makes me sad. In 1 year, we had 100,000 people die from a fentanyl overdose in this country. That's the number of people who died during the Vietnam War. And that lasted for 20 years or more. 1 year. It's horrible.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
So there's a lot of people that are going through the grieving process right now. And yes, they may be feeling stuck. And so, this is important to, it's my children. I have she's just turned 24 and a 19-year-old. And I'm just so grateful that so far we've got away with a lot, because I know many haven't.
Yeah.
And it is easy for these kids to get caught up in stuff and maybe they really shouldn't be doing. But the whole thing is a massive problem. And again, this is why we don't want to talk about it, because I then think to myself, I want to shut down and go, I don't want to even think about that, because we want to naturally avoid, we're always running away from pain. So that whole thought of losing somebody, we don't want to talk about that. And so we avoid it. And then if something happens to those dearest, and we're just not equipped. We're not equipped to deal.
Yeah, and in some instances, the mother knew. No, she didn't even suspect. She knew that the child had been dabbling with drugs. This was heroin, and she thought it went away. But in hindsight, she saw the telltale signs. And it was like the blinders were on. And then there was this sense of guilt. Why didn't I pull off those blinders? Why didn't I talk to my child about this? And that's heartbreaking, because now you're feeling guilty once again. Or why didn't I put that person in rehab immediately? I know a lot of people who've lost children tragically because of drugs. And I think that, I don't know if that's the situation among your acquaintances, but I'm not saying a gazillion, but more than I care
It's a
to
lot.
have. Yes.
Mm.
Because you watch the pain, and it's heart wrenching to see a good friend go through that sort of a thing.
Yeah. So how did you work through this?
I prayed. I'm a faithful person, so I prayed. And I think because of the faith, truly, I realized then that my son, I would see him again. I would. That his time with me was alone. He always belonged to God, and God entrusted me with this little spirit, this little soul, to raise up and allow him to become a man. But when the Lord decided he wanted him back, he was going to take him back. And that's the way I viewed it. My son was a gift to me from God. And I know I screwed up a lot raising him, but in the end, no, I think we did a decent job. He ended up being a lovely person with an awesome personality, and he was beloved. And I think that's proof in the pudding there. How many people still to this day remember and talk about the deceased. To me, that's the legacy I want to leave. And I believe that's the legacy my son left. A family function doesn't go by where a Thai story doesn't come up. And to this day, his friends will text me on his birthday or on the anniversary of his death, and just a little story. And that helps so much too, because that person isn't forgotten. 100 years from now, sure. But as long as we're alive, the memories are there and we can talk about them. And when I wrote the novel, the protagonist isn't my son, but my son was a muse. He's inspired this character. So it's not autobiographical, although some of the scenes in the book did take place. And
did you find that therapeutic? Did you find it therapeutic writing it?
Yeah, I talked over. Sorry.
You're okay.
Oop, I think I unplugged myself. Maybe you should ask a question so I can see if I can hear.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, what I was going to say was, through writing this novel, even though it was a creative story and not based on your son, did it help you in some way? Did you find it therapeutic?
Yes, because it's a story about purpose. And that was the whole thing. Working through this and dealing with younger people who perhaps they're invincible in some respects, but a lot of times I think a lot of the younger people I know they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. And I remember when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was judging myself against other people. And That's not my purpose to have this high powered job, perhaps, or to be making tons of money. My purpose is slightly different. So, yes, writing this whole process, it helped me work through it. And my thinking comes through quite a bit. And as for this protagonist, that isn't my son, but the way he looks, the things he likes. Oh, yes, that's demonstrated. And then and like I said earlier, some of the events, yes, they absolutely took place. And
Right.
they were very difficult to write because I
Right.
experienced them very
Oh,
hard.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. So for people going through, and like you say, I think a lot of people, especially with the madness of the last sort of few years, and maybe they've got to a stage where they realize that they weren't happy in that job that they again got caught up in. And then because they've been forced to stay home, and think about it, many didn't want to go back and started new things. How do they, your purpose, the problem is, again, do you not think, is that because of our conditioning? Like you said, you've got to go and study, then you've got to go to uni, and then you've got to go and get a good job. There's so much pressure that people just don't seem to have space to even
Yeah.
realize their purpose.
Yes. And you get stuck, as you're saying, in these jobs. I always called them the golden handcuffs. Great benefits, great salary, whatever, but you hate this job with your very being. And getting up in the morning is, I just want to lie around in bed. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to that job. And I had that too in my 20s. I had this horrible job writing about surface mining regulations. It was the worst job ever. It was so boring. It was a McGraw-Hill publication. It was dreadful. I don't mean to lambaste McGraw-Hill, but it was a hideous topic and boring. But they paid very well. And then finally, I got pregnant. That's what I did. I got pregnant and decided, you know what? I think I'll just stay home with the baby for a year and quit this job. And then that's when I started thinking about freelancing. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. Dabbled in freelance, got another job, more experience. But what I learned too is that you have to go with your gut. If you are this unhappy, why are you staying in this job? Honestly, your spirit is it's telling you need to be doing something else because you should not be walking around this miserable doing a job.
But it's fear, isn't it?
I know.
Again, like you
Yes.
say, you're stuck because you've got to pay the mortgage, you've got to pay for your house, you've got to pay for the bills. So for people to even go for their purpose, quite often it's a scary thing to do, to just step out and go. And it does seem to be only when you're backed into a corner. Like if somebody does lose their job, all of a sudden that's when they go and follow their purpose because it's like, oh, that's happened, so I've got to do something.
And when a lot of times too, when they lose their job, then they're going through the 5 stages of grief, all this stuff. So they have to work through that. Yeah. My husband once lost his job. He started his own business. Sometimes it's just beautiful being self-employed, isn't it, Karen? You just call your shots. You chart your path in life. Yeah. Fear is a very debilitating emotion. And I personally think it's evil. I personally think it's evil. It is not a place of goodness where fear comes. And because let's face it, if you're fearful, again, you will never fulfill your mission in life. The beautiful thing that you were given to accomplish. And if you're fearful, think about the half lived life you had.
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Karen.
no, you're right. You're just not even going to see it, are you? Because when you
Hmm.
are in a state of fear, you're in a low vibration. If you're feeling guilt about something, you're in a lower vibration. If you're feeling shame, that's like the lowest vibration.
Huh?
You're not capable of, it's almost like you just don't lift your head to actually see the opportunities that are out there. So it's the whole thing. And okay, we won't go down that route, but I'm sure it's to keep people trapped. Because you have to go back to work on Monday because you've got bills to pay. And so
Uh-huh.
that fear is holding people down.
Yes, indeed. And you don't want to be held down. You're to fly and to improve, enhance your spirit, everything. You need to be in this lovely place where this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes I'm not saying you walk around every day feeling, yay, I'm just nailing it. No, you're gonna go, a lot of times I go, why did I ever start this? It is so hard. Honestly, learning all this technology, for example, I this social media, I still don't really have the hang of it. I don't use it effectively. And I think, oh, brother, who cares? If I want to talk to people, I'll just pick up the phone and talk to them. It's more
Yeah, the things have
personal.
changed.
Yes.
Things that definitely the landscape has completely
Yeah.
changed
Yeah.
in more recent times. But yes, the beauty is I would rather sometimes I can be working well into the evening. I wouldn't do that if I was doing a job, but when you're doing it for yourself, because you love what you do, it doesn't, there's still stuff that you've got to do that maybe you'd rather not have to do. But because it's for yourself, there's a different take on it. You will go the extra mile, you will put the effort in. It's like your baby. So when did you really realize for you, with the introduction that I gave for you, you knew at age 6, so you've
Mhm.
known that you wanted to do this all your life. But
Mhm.
what was the turning point for you when you like, okay, this is it now?
I truly believe I marched down that path my entire life, at least beginning at first grade. Because then, as I was growing up, my grandfather had a drugstore. So back in those days, they didn't really use paper bags. They would wrap the drugs into this rice paper or whatever, and it came on this big roll. And my cousin and I would pull out these long sheets of this paper, and then we would chop it up in little pieces, use scotch tape to paste all the little pages together, and then we wrote little stories that we illustrated. This was at my grandmother's house. I'd go to her house for 2 weeks every summer, and that's what she and I did. We wrote our little stories at my grandmother's gigantic table. And then when I was in high school, editor of the school newspaper, go to college, I'm on the newspaper staff, I get a job in newspapers, and then I started magazine freelancing, worked in public relations type of stuff. So actually, I've always written, never, but never fiction. That was the difference going into fiction. And with the blog post, that's more, it's not journalism because I insert myself in it. You're never supposed to do that in journalism. At least that's the way it was when I was doing it. And it's more personal. But again, I'm dealing with facts. And when I write about people in the blog posts, I always get their approval because we screw up. And if I've gotten a fact wrong, I don't want those people being mad at me because I misrepresented them or misunderstood them. So they'll always give it their okay before I publish. But again, I guess it's more factual. So it was the fiction writing that was, because I get to make it all up, the whole thing,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, you
create
could
my own
use that
scenes.
creative. It's the creative side. But the accidental blogger, what is you're sharing other people's stories in that as well. So what is that all about? What's the
I started it because when I started writing the novel and then I started learning about the publishing industry, which is way different than anything I've ever been exposed to, everyone said you have to have a platform. You have to have readers. You have to have people who follow you. So the best way to do it for a writer would be to write a blog. I decided that I would dedicate this blog, and I never intended to do it. So that's the accidental blogger because it was meant as a marketing tool. It was meant as a way to expose myself to others. And then I started really liking it, Karen. I like this. I like writing personality profiles. I like sharing other people, what makes them tick and their viewpoints. It's really interesting. But I decided because I'm all about the hero within. We're all heroes. We all face adversity. It's what we do with the adversity. Truly, we need to be difference makers. We share our stories to help others, that sort of thing. So that's why I dedicated this. That's my thing when I write about people. What happened to you and what hope can you offer others? Now, not all of the blog posts are like that. I can do other things. Sometimes I can't right now at the top of my head, Oh, I've even written about being scammed, when people, oh my gosh. And that's traumatic too. My goodness, someone has you stupidly allowed someone into your computer because you know how that I don't know, you're probably too smart to let that happen. I did
No,
it.
I've been scammed. I've been scammed. Doesn't make you feel good, does it?
No, if you feel violated, don't you? Someone
Mm,
had just gone through your underwear drawer.
mm.
It's so awful. And happened to my husband too. He hates talking about it. I said, dude, why do you care? Everybody's been
Yeah.
scammed.
It
You
happens, but there
you
you go. You talk about feeling guilty. Yeah, I almost felt I should have known better than that. I can't believe I allowed that. So again, you have these feet. I don't stay there too long, but yeah,
well,
Karen, you
yeah.
should have known better.
Yeah, and I said, and the thing is, and then when you tell people, then they're on the lookout for sort of some of their little scammy tactics. These people, they're so evil. Why can't they use their skills and do something that benefits society rather than making our lives miserable?
Yeah. But again, I think that stems from fear. If there wasn't so much fear, there wouldn't be so much people going into crime in the first place, whatever the
Right,
crime is. It
right,
all stems from maybe trauma that they need to work. You
right.
really need to work on your
Yeah.
trauma because those feelings of unworthy, so they feel they have to take,
Yes.
which is never going to get them very far. And I do always think, you know what? Karma will deal with it. I don't need to
Mm,
deal with it. It is what it is. Okay. Need to be a little bit more aware.
yeah.
But for those people, I do think something will happen.
Yeah.
Will happen to them. They're not happy. I cannot believe, I just truly believe that you cannot be totally happy and feeling whole and do bad. Energies don't mix.
Right.
I could be wrong. I'm not an expert.
But
The way I see things is the two energies just can't do it. You can't force a smile on your face and feel sad.
yeah,
Can't do
you look fake and phony. It's
it.
not real. But it was so interesting, talking about crime. I profiled a woman who she never dealt with her trauma, and that was child sexual abuse. For 20 plus years, she couldn't stop her drug addiction problem for anything in this world. She ended up selling, putting guns in people's mouths to pay up. This woman is like this big. She's tiny. And you meet her and go, this can't be. This sweet woman, she did this, but she recovered. And now she has
Wow.
a recovery program for others. Now, to me, that is a beautiful story. She went through this experience. She knows exactly how these people feel. They simply cannot give up their habit. And she is there for them because she understands. If she hadn't gone
Mm.
through it, perhaps she wouldn't be quite as effective in what she now does. And I think
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
wonderful
Well, that's
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not going to go to somebody. This is why I suppose with Alcoholics Anonymous or something, the person who's going to be your sponsor, yeah, they've got to have gone through it because otherwise they're not going to be it's not going to be relatable for somebody like that helping these people because yeah, I know a lot of people will judge and go,
Mhm.
oh, they need to be locked up. But it's no, come on, when you actually dive into it, that's what I find really interesting. When you get to the real core, you realize that something's gone on in their life, which, yeah, goes back to me saying, yeah, if you're totally happy, you just can't. You just can't. How could you steal from anybody? How could you take from an old lady? Yeah, you just couldn't do it. Whereas some kind of trauma, and it's just triggering some kind of programming almost, you've got to forgive, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people struggle with that because they need to be punished. Actually, maybe they need help. Maybe
Yeah.
they need.
They need help. And the person who needs to go through this recovery process, they also have to admit what they did wrong. And the person who has been the victim of this, they have to move on as well. You don't have to be that person's friend. You don't have to, but you do have to move on because it's a cancer. I think one of the most incredible examples of that years and years ago in Yes, it was in Pennsylvania, an Amish community. They live separately. They have horse and buggies and they're farmers, etc. And some man went into one of their schools and shot up the school. This is incredible. But the Amish said, "We forgive him. We
Ah,
forgive him." And I remember the news media just they could not understand that
no,
for the life of them. What do you mean?
no.
You should be angry and demand it. No, that's not our way.
Oh,
We will forgive.
wow,
All these little children are dead. And that to me,
wow.
that is such a beautiful example of what I'm talking about.
And it is. And this is why it is so complex, because I would say, yes, outsider looking in, yes, you've got to forgive, not necessarily for them, but for yourself. But on the flip side of it, I'm pretty sure if anybody harmed my child, I'm pretty 100% convinced that I would get so angry. And it's consciously knowing something. I know that wouldn't be good for me or anybody else around me, but it's so difficult, isn't it?
Yes. And again, another person, two women, in fact, who I interviewed, their sons, one son was killed. He was in jail. Young man, stupid, did something very stupid, broke his probation, et cetera, et cetera. They put him in jail. He was murdered in his cell. This is incredible. This is incredible. So the parents are grieving. What did they do? They decided that they were going to support, they're very faithful people. They were going to support prison ministries and have put their money where their mouth is. And they now support that, teaching that you're loved, that
Yeah.
you don't have to live in your past. The stuff that happened in your childhood, that does not define who you are today. You're going to have to work through the process, but you can have a good and meaningful life where you are serving others and serving yourself as well, because you're fulfilling your purpose. Shooting people and raping people and abuse of any kind. No, that's not your purpose. That's not your
No.
purpose unless you have a severe mental illness. But I'm just talking about hardships, not severe mental illness. So
Yeah.
that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly no shrink. I
but
just tell I just tell
yeah,
people
you've got
stories.
to do it. You've got to, and it's. I know it's difficult when it's yourself. So it's easy to say that I would forgive because, yeah, on the flip side,
Yeah,
I would find it I would need help. I would need help to move through that. I would be having to meditate. You would have to make an effort for it. It's not going to come naturally
that's right.
when it's somebody so close. There are different things that go on. So I know I get it. I know it's a complex purpose, but at the same time, I can still understand. But regardless of what the tragedy is, if you're not going to let it go and if you're not going to forgive and you're going to stay angry, it is like drinking poison, expecting them to
That's
suffer.
exactly right. You're just going to stay stuck. And you know what? Everything about you changes. Your facial expressions, you'll get these nasty little crevices in your face because you're always frowning. The little frown lines. I'd rather have laugh lines than frown lines, wouldn't you? Everybody would.
Yeah.
So yeah, you change and no one wants to be around you because they can pick up the negative energy.
Yeah.
And
Because
then
it
that
is
just,
all energy.
and then it exacerbates things. Yeah. So that's
So, what advice can you offer to the younger people that are under 50?
under 50. I would develop a bucket list. I would develop a bucket list and things you passionately want to do and then do them. I would certainly forgive those who have mistreated you. That's very important too. You must move on and don't be fearful. Go for it. Maybe you're doing a job that your parents expected you to do, or it's part of the family legacy, lawyer, or doctor, what have you. But if that's not for you, don't do it. Pursue what you but where you are at a place of peace and you know when it happens, because that tension that you're carrying in your shoulders and in your neck literally drops off. It's like you've been hauling around our boulder for years, and now that load has been removed from you. And those are the things I would highly recommend. As I said earlier, I did a job because money was good, but I felt depleted and unfulfilled. I would never stay in a job ever again where I didn't enjoy it. After all, you spend most of your time working, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you better like what you're doing.
Yeah, I do. I'm very grateful that throughout my life, I spent the majority of my adult life jumping around a studio to music, teaching fitness classes because I loved it. It was not for the money, because any fitness instructors out there, if you're teaching group fitness, there's no money in it. I used to have quite a big personal training business. There was more money in that, but I didn't get the same enjoyment. So it just didn't matter to me. I wanted to do more. I wanted to teach group fitness because I was enjoying it. So I've always had that sort of outlet. I don't care. Work, like you say, you're at work for the majority of your day, right? So you've got to spend it doing something you love. And now, luckily, there's downsides to it, because now I'm not as fit and I'm definitely bigger because I'm not jumping around a studio listening to music. And instead, this is what I do all day, is I get to speak to amazing people doing amazing things, serving their communities in lots of different ways with different tools in their toolbox. What better job? It's phenomenal. So what about, and I'm in this bracket, so over 50, what would your advice be then?
Over 50. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. Don't be afraid.
You're never too old.
You're never too old. And unfortunately, I think our society teaches that at some level. You're just too old. You don't get it. And let's face it, when we're dealing with technology, I can't wait for my sons to come visit. Here, help us deal with this TV. We can't make this stinking thing work. Stuff like that.
My daughter takes my phone off. She just gets impatient with me. If we're ordering something, she'll just, I'll do it, because I'm obviously taking way too long. Sorry.
Yes, I do that with my husband. He's even worse than I am. Oh, I said, just give me your phone. And this is ridiculous. Look at me. I'm so empathetic. Whatever. But he's my husband. He's in a different class. Okay.
Yeah. There's a difference, so that you still have empathy for them, but we can take the mickey and we can have banter. That's a different thing. It's a totally different thing. And what would you say to people who are hurting right now?
That's a good question. I truly believe if you are feeling like your life has absolutely no meaning, you feel hopeless, you are only hearing the negative in your head, then seek help now. If you're just having the blues, okay, we all have the blues, but it's this chronic stuff. This is serious. Seek help. Find a counselor. Find a friend. If there are financial issues, go somewhere to get the resources you need. They are out there. Chronic depression, this is not a normal thing. This is a sign that you could do something that could hurt yourself. And that is not good, because then again, you wouldn't be fulfilling your purpose, would you? Always think about, no, why was I put here? I was put here. What is my path? Maybe that's what you do. You find your purpose by discovering your passion. I have a friend who's chronically depressed, and her passion is a hobby, and she figures she can't make any money at it. But I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if you did a podcast or you did a YouTube series on this hobby, oh my goodness. And if you're really good, somebody would probably finance it or support you. There are ways to work your passion. And now she's just, woe is me. And once I said, whose voice do you listen to? She goes, the only voice who talks to me, the negative one. Oh my goodness. I don't want to live like that.
Oh,
That's my advice to these folks. You're living
yeah.
a half life.
Oh, definitely. It's the ego mind trying to tricking you to keep you safe. And the mind is just a tool that we can use, but we allow it to control us. Every time you go within, and like you said, it's faith. So whether you're spiritual, whether you're religious or not, it's all the same thing. You're going within and you're putting faith in a higher source, whatever you want to call it. And that's when you are heart centered, and that's when you will raise your vibration and you will feel better and you will come out of that slump. Or listening to the ego consistently, it is not going to be a good
Yeah.
place.
And Karen, remember when you decided you were going to start your radio station and start with the coaching and that sort of thing? And I don't know, you seem like a fearless type, but perhaps you had some reservations, but when you did it, oh my goodness, you were on cloud nine.
Oh, absolutely. Best thing. It's the best thing
Mhm.
I've done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's funny, it wasn't the plan. And it just goes to show that when you actually listen, because I can talk a lot, right? When Karen shushes verbally and mentally, that's when things seem to flow. That's when ideas come up and I act on them rather than allowing actually my ego mind to think I've got to do this and I've got to work this and I've got to work that. But when you are on purpose, when you are, and you have to be in that calm place, you have to practice either meditation or whether you're using your faith for it. It's all having the same effect. It's all
Mhm.
having the same effect. And that is
Mhm.
going to make you feel. You, when you started out, as in, I know you did freelancing through magazine, but when you made the decision to actually go for what you were passionate and write a novel, right? When you started, I'm sure, again, even though you've been writing all your life professionally and for yourself, but do you have any favorite, like more on the self-development sort of books? What books then inspired you, other than To Kill a Mockingbird, about you stepping out and doing it for yourself?
I don't really have any. I really don't. I'm self-motivated. I think you're probably self-motivated. I guess when I first started out in my freelance writing business, I read, and that was so long ago and I can't even remember the title. So I can't help you there. If you've rattled off
What
some
about
really, go ahead.
do you have any influencers that you follow?
The influences, mainly it was, I have been taking a lot of classes on novel marketing. So those are my influences now. If I'm
Yeah,
answering your question,
yeah,
I'm going to go with the people who've done this. I go to conferences and I meet people and I'm constantly asking them questions. Why reinvent the wheel? These people have done this. I haven't. So I'm certainly not a know-it-all. In fact, I know very little. So yeah, you should educate yourself too. And I remember when I first started freelancing, I took a sales course, this Sandler sales technique. And that was interesting. They told you to model people's gestures. I'm outgoing. You're outgoing. You talk a lot. So do I. But if you're dealing with a shy person, tamp it down. You will scare the bejesus out of that person. They will not want to do business with you because they see you as a threat because you're big and powerful and they're meek. So they say
yeah.
model their body language. So that's a good technique, I think. Now just tamp it
And
down.
if you're in business, you're in sales, no matter what. And that's
Hmm.
what so many people miss. They forget. Yeah, they want to help people. They want to do this. Yeah, but you're in sales. You've got to get clients.
That's
So
right.
definitely something you've got to learn. Look,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time today, Laurie. And actually, especially because of what you're currently going through and so recent. So thank you for sharing and thank you for being open because yes, even with the tools that you already have because you've dealt with it once, you're still This is still another challenge for you to pass through, and you could have easily cancelled this. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing. So hopefully there's people out there that all are hurting right now. Come and check out our website. Come and check out her blog, Accidental Blogger, and hopefully some of the stories may help you to get over adversity. So thank you, Lori, and to everybody else, I will be back on Monday with a Coffee with Karen. Bye for now.
The Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.